Hey everybody, it is now day 10. So here's how day 10 works. This day is all about understanding how the research question works and workshopping questions in progress. So students come in with 3 research questions written on 3 different index cards, and they're going to test them out, get them evaluated by their peers, evaluate other ones, and generally start thinking more concretely about what they could propose for their research project. This is done individually, not in pairs, so that each pair gets 6 instead of 3, basically. Um, if we have them, you will have a bunch of star stickers that they can use for this activity. If not, then they'll have to use their initials, which is less fun. But we'll see what happens. We ordered them and they sent us the wrong thing, and now we're waiting for them to send us the right thing again. It's a whole ordeal. So, first activity, as they come in, make sure they don't sit next to their partner. That's important for this activity. They need to only communicate with their partner through writing for this day. So just make sure that they're not immediately next to them. You should discuss just a bit what is the Project 3, the research letter. This is a fairly quick explanation. They are thinking through some research ideas. It doesn't need to be a whole lot more concrete than that. The topic and the method of study, they're going to email it to their partner and they'll CC you on that email. There's a particular format to follow for the heading so that it's nice and organized for you in your inbox, but that'll all go in homework. This is a pretty simple one. So the first step is setting assessment criteria for the activity you're about to do, about research questions. I've given you, on the second page of this lesson plan, some research criteria you could just give them. You could write them on the board and say, these are the criteria that we care about in looking at research questions. I prefer to have them generate them, if at all possible. So there's a series of free writes here for you to help them think about what's a research question for, why might we follow the kind of strict structure that they just used in these ones, what happens if the research question is weak, what does that mean? And the point of this is to get to finding a list of adjectives that describe strong or weak research questions and framing those as criteria that they could use to evaluate one another's research questions. You can land on the criteria that I've offered, or you can offer some new ones if they come up with interesting ways to phrase it or interesting things to look for. You should put these criteria, whatever they are, on the board so that as they're doing the next activity, they can reference them as they're thinking through how the other research questions do. So, next activity, this sort of workshop for the class. They have in their hands 3 research questions on 3 different cards. What they're going to do, this is a sort of read-around activity. The questions are going to circulate around the class, clockwise or counterclockwise, whatever. And everyone's going to be able to read one another's questions and put stars on the ones that they think are the best, is the essence of this thing. And then because everyone's going to read everyone else's questions, some of the best questions will accumulate a lot of stars as the activity goes on, and some of them won't. And that will be the sort of very clear way to determine how good their research questions are at the moment. Some people won't get a lot of stars, and that's a bummer. But they also will get the chance to see some really positive research questions that are working well. So they should get a sense for why they didn't get a whole lot of stars. The best way I talk through the sort of method for running this activity. It'll have to change probably depending on what room you're in, but ideally if you're in a big enough room that you can get everybody in a circle, students would each have 3 cards. They would exchange with the people to their left and right, so that they would end up with a stack of 3 cards, one of which is theirs, one is the person to the left, and one is the person to the right. And then they're handing this whole stack down a couple of people so that the card stack that they end up with doesn't have their own card in it. and then they're judging among those 3 cards. They don't need to give a star every round. If there's not a good question in their opinion, or not a good enough question in there, then they don't have to give one. This is why I like the stars, is they have a limited amount that they can give out. I say 5, so that they only have 5 to give out across the entire activity, so they have to be very picky about what they give them to. But you keep circulating the questions around. I would like to stop at some point and do another shuffle of the cards, just so that the group of 3 doesn't always stay together, the one that was formed initially, because maybe there's a super strong card in there and it overpowers some other card from getting any stars. That would be a bummer, so switching them up allows another chance at another grouping. Read it through, orchestrate it the way that makes the most sense for you and for your classroom, but the idea is generally that everybody gets to read all of the cards. There's about 75 of them in the room probably, and to evaluate which are the strongest and really try to internalize those evaluation standards that you set up. I have set for the rest of the class drafting the Project 3 letter. You might have half an hour left, you might have more or less depending on how long it takes you to do the activity. I would make sure that you leave 15 minutes at the end to do that drafting, even if that means stopping the activity short. So if things are going long, make sure they have some time to work on that letter at the end, because it's going to be due before the next class. Okay, so they'll email it to their partner and they'll CC you, and then you'll have record of whether they did it or not. I would honestly send them almost no feedback on that. It's not a document that requires your feedback. It's really a stepping stone document to the research proposal. I would just say, thanks, this looks good, or thanks, cool idea. Mostly positive stuff, mostly one sentence. It's not worth your time to give more than that, probably. Finally, the other part of their homework is, they should bring a printed copy of that letter to class next time, because they're going to use it in class with their partner. Unless you're in a lab, in which case don't print it. There's a video for them to watch on qualitative versus quantitative research. It basically just breaks down the different styles of research you can do to answer a question, and gives them a whole toolkit to draw on. This is going to be useful for next class when they're starting to identify a way of doing their research for this project. That's about it. I hope this goes well. This, like last time, is a bit freeform in how it can turn out. But I hope that the activity goes well and that you get to see a lot of really cool research projects in their formation. Have fun.